So our Rachel has delivered up her second budget to the country, and we all stood around and tried not to cry. I'll quickly summarise some views that I've got, and then conclude. I'm not going to go into the actual real finite detail. There's plenty of good articles out there if you want to read them. I mean, the big takeaway is really the size of the tax rises versus the size of the 16 billion extra in welfare that she's going to be spending, all at a time as national debt has continued to rise, and very clearly the economy is not doing very well. Benefits increased, plus pensions are increased, plus the two-child cap has been removed. To give you some idea, I believe pensions are looking at something like a 4.6 or 4.8% pay rise this year in terms of a pension uplift, as with benefits. You and I, if we're lucky, got a pay rise. I got, I think if I remember correctly, a 4%. So effectively on that basis, you are transferring ever more money from the productive to effectively the non-productive classes. And you're effectively removing the incentive to work, because why would I keep working at this rate? This is ludicrous. The other thing that kind of got released and they tried to hide is the fact that asylum accommodation is penciled to rise from about 5 billion this year all the way up to 15 by I think it's 2030. So very clearly they're not going to be stopping the boats. The big tax rise was obviously fiscal drag. That is, they're not moving the thresholds in line with inflation. This has been used all the way back to George Osborne by governments. It is frankly a horrific way of raising taxes insofar as it's grossly unfair, and I would actually argue it's borderline corrupt. However, they all get up to it. It's also pushing more and more people into the 40% band. I think go back to the early 2000s, it was probably something like 3-4% of people who paid that. You're now going to be up to 17-18% by the end of this parliament. Most of the other tax rises have been penciled in to come in later. So they are not going to be raising taxes immediately on everything from mansions to electric cars and beyond. And I suspect that's purely political because she's hoping she doesn't have to. The overall thesis of the budget, I believe, is probably best summarised by pay now and tax later, apart from that one with fiscal drag. Let's not hide from the fact that she is continuing to raise welfare, and even under the best case scenario, debt is due to keep rising by another 2 percentage points of GDP. So this is not when she goes, oh, we've got to get control of our debt. What she basically means is, I just don't want it to rise quite as quickly as it is now. She is not trying to get control of that. She's not even trying to manage debt into a stable position or to bring it down. The budget, once it was released, almost instantly was you had defence coming out and basically saying without more money, they would see cuts there. So this is the beginning of possibly an unwind. Also, there are some little clangers in there that are starting to come out that people hadn't really grasped. For example, unless Phillipson sorts out SEND, that's children with special educational needs, which has become a racket for and has pretty much destroyed all of the councils, then you're looking at potentially a 4.9% per pupil cut in educational spending, which would be absolutely catastrophic. Most schools, I would suspect, would struggle to survive that. Tax reform is clearly not happening. Let's be under no illusions there. She has done nothing to simplify the tax code. If anything, when you look at certain things like the mansion tax, like the ISA change and everything else, she is, as is now traditional, adding more complexity to the system rather than removing it. Welfare reform, not really a whisper about that, so I think we can be safely confident that it's probably not going to happen. Let's face it, if you're terrified of your backbenchers now and you're a year and a half in and you've got a 200 majority, then you have next to no chance in a year or so's time. And on that basis, do we actually honestly expect Labour to reform Send, which requires actually to make hard decisions and actually to turn around to people and go, maybe you're not a complete victim and you need to get on with your life. The other thing that's been hidden in the background of the OBR projections is the fact that the OBR has assumed that net migration continues running at, drum roll, 300,000 annually. So that is approximately 50,000 more than we had pre-Brexit, which caused Brexit to blow the political system sky high. So I think we can be safe here to say that Labour, on no level, whether illegal or legal, is going to be controlling migration. Make of that what you will. In conclusion, the going for growth moniker that they had before the election appears to have just degenerated into going for growth of the welfare state and also government spending. We're not seeing any joined up thinking in order to get the economy moving in any shape or form, and that is reflected back in the growth figures that the OBR has released, which shows them downgrading growth figures into the future. Let's face it, the build up to this budget, but actually overall her actions since she had her first budget last year through to now, she has completely flattened the economy. The economy has clearly stalled, and I think we're now looking down the barrel of a recession. There is no real clear strategy or even narrative coming out of this budget, nor out of anything that this government actually does at the moment. They are literally just looking at political survival. They are scared of reform, they are terrified of their own backbenchers, and they clearly will just do anything and say anything in order to try and hold on with their fingertips. This is a government which is governing for itself. It is not governing in the national interest. And if you cannot manage to govern in the national interest in your first 18 months, I see no reason to believe that you're going to govern in the national interest moving forward. As I said, as time progresses within parliaments, they normally become more rambunctious, if you like, with backbenchers more likely to rebel and everything else. Plus, you begin to see the election coming into view at some level or t'other. They have, Labour, to give you some idea, extracted in two budgets somewhere around about an extra 70 billion a year from the public. And those are some of the biggest tax rises in history. This is coming from a party that made a big thing out of the fact that it was not going to raise taxes on working people before the election. They have lied again, and I think that the public well and truly see them for what they are. I think overall, though, Labour is missing the winds of change that are starting to blow through this country, but actually across much of Europe. As you guys may know, my wife is French, so I follow French politics, as she does, obviously, and you're beginning to see the same pushback there against the huge transfers of wealth from the productive to the unproductive classes in terms of from working people to pensioners to welfare claimants and migrants and everything else. And I think that is now a trend that you're seeing across Europe that's going to become harder and harder. People are bluntly tired of tax and spend, which doesn't really work for them. It certainly doesn't work in terms of an economy. This political economy that we have in this country and more broadly across the whole of Europe is broken. We do not innovate, we cannot grow fast, and bluntly, it no longer performs for your average person. Why would they bother keep making an effort when all that happens is the state continuously extracts from us on this basis? I still think that there is a good chance that you're going to see this whole budget unwind over the next few days. I think that you begin to see these numbers, like I said, over education and everything else, as people begin to pick through the details of it and actually start understanding the implications for it. You may well see it begin to basically unwind as bit by bit she has to change this, that and the other and special interest cut in. All in all, I would argue from this budget that, or even before this, but certainly this budget is the crowning moment where politically the Labour has destroyed all trust in them. How can anyone trust Labour now after the lies they said before the election through to this entire shambolic process to the build up to this budget, but actually even starting from the minute they walk through the front door of Downing Street and Whitehall. The process has been shambolic, the outcomes are shambolic, and I think that more and more people will see that as we move forward. So all in all, it won't come as anyone's surprise, because I'm no Labour supporter anymore, but I did expect more, and I didn't even expect more. I did expect some effort to govern for the national interest, and really what I got was Labour governing for their own self-interest.